right, so we're going to get back into. I touched on this topic. I think it was yesterday, the day before. I can't quite remember. So the ACC is dead. They agreed to settle their lawsuit with Florida State and Clemson, which was mostly Florida State. To which they changed the money deals as far as how the money is spread out amongst the conference. Um, the the grant of rights basically are given back to the schools and the teams when they leave the conference. Um, Grant of rights, yeah, so they're basically the television rights, everything like that goes to them. It doesn't stick with the ACC for a time period. They also made it to where right now any school could leave. It would just be $165 million instead of the $500 million that it was priced at. And in 5 years, it drops to where it's only $75 million to leave. And at the same time, in 5 years, the Big Ten is up for their TV contracts to be rediscussed. And I think a year after that, the SEC is. But everybody should know that by now. But what I'm going to talk about is I loved all these individuals that for the last 2 years have just crapped on Florida State and crapped on Clemson a little bit and kept telling them there's no way they're going to get out of the ACC. They're locked in for 10 years, which would be, until 2036. They can't get out. Ha, 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 ha. Stuck their noses up at us, all this nonsense, just to then see it all fall apart in their faces the next day, or this last yesterday. And it was even funnier to watch these people that they couldn't even admit that they were in the wrongs on these things. Now, I'll give them this. They did go off about how a lot of Florida State fans said that Florida State and Clemson would be out of the conference by 2025. And they're obviously they're not. Now, having said that, sure, you got the fringe society of fans that are going to believe what they want to believe, and they're going to argue with it until their dying breath. But in defense of some fans, the president, the athletic director, were doing a lot to make it seem like Florida State was going to get out of this within like a year or two period. With the way they handled things, with the way they were doing stuff on social media, with how they talked, that you can't completely blame the Florida State fans on social media for wanting to believe that, because we were kind of led astray. I at one point thought, okay, yeah, maybe they could get out in 2025, but then when you kind of started really seeing the tea leaves, it was like, no, okay, it's not going to be 2025, maybe 2027, maybe 2030, what it would be, but you still had the hardcore ones that are like, no, we're getting out in 2025. I mean, that could happen if they want to pony up the 165 million. I mean, that could happen, but I don't see that happening. So yeah, you can call out the fans that said that was going to happen on that, but you guys have got to eat crow on everything else, because let's just put it, there's this, and I'm going to try to pull this up and see if I can find this one. And I don't like doing this, but at the same time, I feel like this needs to be done. But there's this show called The Monty Show, which is a weird name for a sports show. Are they still live? Good God, they've been live this whole time. Okay, so these guys started off 5 hours, 6 hours ago. Holy crap, what are we doing? They started out, these guys, you can obviously tell, and I remember them a couple years ago. Like, they're Florida State haters. This is not what I wanted to do. Get a full facial. They're Florida State haters, but that's fine. I mean, you're just going to have people out there that don't like your team, that don't like what you like, and whatever. That's perfectly fine. That's just how it is. But these guys are so just hateful that they can't even admit when they're wrong and that they're idiots. And we'll start off with they went into it right away about Florida State and the conference, and basically said that Florida State didn't win. That they won, and they kept doing air quotes on everything. And if you're on a show and all you keep doing is air quotes over and over and over again, oh, holy crap, man! What are we doing? But they basically went in saying that Florida State didn't win. They didn't get what they wanted. They're still in the ACC. That they're not, sure that they won because they got more money, but then they'd go into saying, but see, if they left and even went to another conference, they're not going to get full participation. They're only going to get half or 30% of the TV deal, and that's just about the same amount that they'd make if they stay in the ACC, and that's bullcrap. Because if you can see here, they were talking about how when USC and UCLA joined the Big Ten, that they only took half of the television revenue deal or whatever it was. Like they weren't full members or whatever it was. So they couldn't make the full amount from the television or whatever deal it was. And Oregon and Washington were cheaper because they were begging to get into the Big Ten. So I Googled how much USC and UCLA made in the first year in the Big Ten. And it turns out that they made 65 to 75 million in their first year of being in the Big Ten. And that's not, I don't even think that includes whatever TV deal they got from it or whatever benefits that might have come with it. Florida State, if they stay in the ACC right now, may, depending on how it works out, may get 50 million a year. Which, I mean, that doesn't sound bad. That's not, I mean, I'm not poo-pooing that at all. But when you look at this in the first year that they were in, that's 15 to 25 million more. And who knows with the SEC? I mean, I think that's almost like 100 million a year that those teams are making there. There's the difference. And that's what Florida State had been talking about for the past 2 years. The fact that these guys, especially this big dope here, did not understand that and was going to defend his stupid argument to the point that it was even proven to his face and still argued it. It just makes me laugh, man. It's like if I came on here and I said something that was wrong or I said something that I thought was right, and then I found out later, nope, it wasn't. Hey, I'm coming on going, hey, I was wrong, baby. I talked my mouth off and look what happened. I was completely wrong on this whole thing. If it turns out that Florida State decides to stay in the ACC in 5 years, I'll come back on if I'm still doing this and go, yep, look, remember 5 years ago when I said we're out? We're not out. We're still there. I was wrong. That's just how it is. But these guys, oh my God, it's like, we get it. You hate Florida State. Fantastic, dude. But you don't have to lie, and you can actually call a win a win. They go in, well, I'm just going to let them talk for a second.
This is The Monty Show, the truth in sports talk streaming. When you want unbiased opinions about your favorite team without the spin, all you have to do is find The Monty Show.
29-30, expected to drop below $100 million. In fact, sources told me yesterday that it would be below $80 million. You look at the reporting on this, I mean, it's on its face, this is an unequivocal win for Florida State. It would appear.
Mm-hmm.
If that is in fact the case, why is my social media timelines, all of my socials, TikTok, the comments on TikTok yesterday, the comments in our comment section here on YouTube yesterday, if you're on Twitter, you see all the comments on my tweet machine. Why is everybody saying the ACC is dead? And all the jack wagons,
Because it is dead, you jackrabbit. It's been dead. The ACC started to decay when the SEC did their first expansion, when they picked up Texas A&M, Missouri. Was there one other? I could be wrong. It's been so long ago. And the ACC decided to go after the Northeast schools in Louisville because they thought having television deals in Boston, New York, up the East Coast, and then all the way down to South into Florida was a better thought, that it was a television market. They did not foresee. I will say this about the SEC. They have always been run by people that have visions of the future as far as where the sport is going and what what it can be or what it should be. Now, I don't think the SEC has always been the power conference that has always made it out to be, but as far as the people running it, they know what they're doing. When it comes to the ACC, they have been completely off kilter on everything. And so when the SEC expanded and got Texas A&M and Missouri, sure, that might have been for a market, but it was also because they were understanding where the conferences were going. The ACC only expanded for television purposes, not for getting decent schools or good schools as far as football goes in the conference. So they started to decay then. The minute that the ACC died was the second time the SEC expanded. They took Texas and Oklahoma, because remember, there was at one point where Texas and Oklahoma, there were talks of them joining the ACC, and for whatever reason, it didn't happen. So Texas and Oklahoma get picked up by the SEC, and then the Big Ten invades the Pac-12, destroys the Pac-12, and takes their premier teams, becomes a coast-to-coast conference. And what did the ACC do after that? Nothing. And this guy's sitting here saying, oh, the ACC didn't die. I don't know. They're already dead, you moron. Do you not understand that? They are already dead. There is no other great school besides Notre Dame out there that you can get to join your conference that are going to make people want to either stay or join your conference. It is over. The top teams of the ACC and the mid-tier teams of the ACC want out. Your television markets want out. Notre Dame will leave the minute that Florida State, Clemson, and Miami, North Carolina leave. They will bounce out of the ACC. This conference is dead, and the fact that this guy and this other dude that looks like a serial killer staring at the screen don't understand and see that makes me wonder why anybody takes anything they say seriously.
A guy podcast bros saying the SEC is hunting. Well, no, they're not. And if they're hunting, they're not hunting for Florida State today. Because if Florida State was going to cough up the $290 million by some estimates it would take today to announce they were leaving the AC.
Okay, again, and his numbers are just wrong right there. He didn't get the correct numbers. He's running it's supposed to be 300 million. It's not. It's down to 165, my dude. You really need to update yourself before you start blabbermouthing on these things. It's down to 165. And a team could decide to pay the 165. They could. Will they? I don't think so. I think in the next 2 years, because it's going to drop 20 mil a year, you will see Florida State and Clemson look at that door. And to say that the SEC and the Big Ten aren't interested in any of these schools is nonsense, because this is the long game. Again, it is going to two super conferences, the SEC and the Big Ten. We are already halfway, if not more than a third of that way there. That's why Florida State and Clemson want out of the ACC, because it is a dead conference and they don't want to be left out. This is why this is all going down right now. And they want to join one of these other conferences to start making that money so their teams are there and their facilities are there and that they can compete with paying these kids. Because until the NIL is figured out, it is just a money game. And to sit there and poo-poo a team for wanting to try to survive in the world that it's no longer collegiate sports, it is professional or semi-professional sports, is just ludicrous. And these guys are dinosaurs when it comes to this. Their foresight is ridiculous. And I honestly think the guy next to him is probably thinking that the guy, I guess his name's Monty, is an idiot, because the things he's saying does not make sense. Maybe the SEC didn't want Florida State. Okay, I won't argue with you on that. I mean, Florida didn't want us in there. I mean, the same reason Texas A&M didn't want Texas in there. But maybe Florida State doesn't want to go in the SEC. Maybe Florida State is looking at the Big Ten. Maybe the Big Ten is looking at them. Florida State and Clemson would not have jumped into this lawsuit unless there was a reasonable reason to do it and to leave. And you can sit there and say, well, no, both of the conferences said they haven't had talks. And OJ didn't kill his wife. come on, dude. This is business. This isn't loyalty anymore. This is business. There are going to be conferences that have done it before and are doing it now that are going to backdoor other conferences looking at teams by saying, hey, look, if you guys can get out of your contract there, we'll find a way to make sure you get more than what people would normally get joining the conference so that you guys can compete. And then after 3 years, 4 years, we'll get it to where you guys are full members. Da, 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 da. So to sit there and just continue to die on this hill that nobody's interested in any of these teams in the ACC and that the ACC is not dead, it makes you a horrible sports fan and a horrible podcast guy. Oh, let me do the podcast guy.
ACC, would they not have done that already? Are you telling me that now, and I think that what's being overlooked and nobody is talking about in this ACC settlement, that when you leave the ACC now, you pay your fee to get out, you get to keep your media rights, which is what we talked about yesterday was the critical issue previously for Florida State. You can pay $500 million to get out. That didn't mean you were getting your media rights.
Yes, it was updated, and that is, you moron. Again, I seriously hope this was, I think it was live. I'm pretty sure it's still live. And the fact that they didn't educate themselves, like later on, I came back later and he claims that they're educated and know all this stuff. But yet here he is just talking completely out his ass when all the information is out there. If he would have gone through his timeline, he would have found even legit reporters talking about this. They get their media rights. It is part of the deal with them leaving. It is not held with the ACC. It leaves with them the minute that they leave. And the fact that he is still talking as if they're not going to get it shows you just the level of intelligence of where he's at.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's the win. It's not that you can pay your way out. It's not that you're going to make $60 million a year if you win games.
And this is the other argument I'm going to have with him. He obviously did not understand the deal as it is. They go into saying that Florida State and Clemson will make more money if they keep winning games in their conference, that they'll get paid more for winning games. That's not what the deal is. The deal is, I don't want to say popularity, but the deal is TV ratings. It's Florida State and Clemson had basically stated that they have more people that watch them than a Wake Forest or a Duke, but yet Duke and Wake Forest still get the same amount of money that Florida State and Clemson get, even though nobody's watching these other two teams, but everybody's watching Florida State and Clemson. That's what the new deal is. It goes into, it's a ratings system now, and it's if you stay on top of the ratings, if your team stays on top of the ratings, you get a higher cut of the money at the end of the year. It doesn't have anything to do with wins. I mean, people watch Notre Dame on NBC all the time, even in the years that they suck, because they want to watch them lose. That's just the honest truth. So when Notre Dame's doing good, people watch them because they want to watch them lose. When Notre Dame is garbage, people want to watch them because they want to watch them lose. Florida State is in that same boat. Florida State, when they're winning, people want to watch because they want to watch them lose. When they're dog trash, people want to watch because they want to dog them and make fun of them. And that's what the brand recognition is. And that was part of what Florida State and Clemson are saying is their brands are so much bigger than the rest of these brands. Why are they getting paid the same amount and we're struggling? And I can't remember where it is in this stream, but he goes into that and they're making it that they're going to get paid by wins. That's not how it goes.
It's that you now can buy your way out of the ACC contract and you get to keep your media rights. That's what the win is. But I implore ACC fan, I implore Florida State fan, and all three Clemson fans, I implore all of you, be realistic. You did not abolish the grant of rights as one person.
Actually, they did. They pretty much did, my man, because going into this, it was an ironclad grant of rights. It was you were not going to be able to leave until 2036. That's what it was. What is it now, my chummy chum? They can leave at any time they want to. If they want to pay $165 million, they can leave. I'm pretty sure that means the grant of rights is pointless. So how are you saying that they didn't abolish it? They did. It was abolished. They don't have to sit around for another 10 years waiting. They can leave at any point, and they will definitely leave in 2029. His argument is the stupidest thing. Am I wrong? If I'm wrong, please let me know, because I will come back on tomorrow and go, all right, you guys have a point. You are correct. The fact that he's arguing that the GOR was not abolished when any team can leave at any point starting now is just dumb. Let me make sure this is going. I want to make sure. I don't know if my mic's on or not.
Person tweeted, you did not burn the ACC to the ground.
They did.
As idiot podcaster guy said yesterday.
Idiot podcaster. They burned the ACC to the ground. I lit the match. Like I said, the ACC lit the match 15 years ago when they expanded and picked up the schools, the old Big East schools, and then did nothing when the Big 12 lost Texas and Oklahoma and the Pac-12 folded. But yeah, ACC is so healthy. Good job, my friend. Idiot podcaster.
ACC is intact. Nobody has left the ACC.
Let's go
State
back.
is going to leave the ACC. State is going to leave. Buy your way out of the ACC
Let's go back to that.
And you get to keep your media rights. That's
I want to hear him say that one more
is.
time. The
But
ACC is intact. I want to hear that one more time.
ACC fan. I implore Florida State fan and all three Clemson fans. I implore all of you, be realistic. You did not abolish the grant of rights, as one person tweeted. You did not burn the ACC to the ground, as idiot podcaster guy said yesterday. The ACC is intact.
Oh, I don't know where this guy is or what city he's in. I heard him say he's from Chicago, which would make sense that he's so arrogant and ignorant. It is intact in the sense that, yeah, it's still a conference. I'll give him that much. If you want to get semantical on it, it is intact because there's still a conference. But it is not intact, my friend. It is at the... I mean, I don't want to say at the beginning phase. It is well past the beginning phase of fracturing. It is falling apart. The dominoes are beginning to sway. And at one point, one of the dominoes are going to fall and the ACC is going to bottom out and it'll be nothing. Will it be tomorrow? Probably not. Will it be in the next 2 years? I'd put that at a 15% chance.
Nobody has left the ACC. Nobody has announced their intent.
I love how he thinks he's so smart because nobody's left for the ACC right now. Man, he really... Look, again, to his credit, I'll give it to him. There were a lot of Florida State fans that were just going on about how we were going to leave the minute we dropped the deal from $500 million to a decent pay. He's right about that. I'll give him that much. There were a lot of Florida State fans that were dumb that ran on that, but there was a lot of people that were misled on that. But because you had a bunch of people on Twitter that were just saying stuff that they didn't actually know or claiming that they had sources, all that stuff. That's fine. But the intent of this was to get paid more, was to get rid of the ironclad grant of rights, which they did, was to get their media rights back when they leave, which they did. So there's 3 wins right there. To drop the buyout, that's 4 wins right there. And to basically be able to leave anytime they wanted. High five. High five. I think that's wins. Maybe I'm an idiot. Maybe I'm just an idiot. Maybe he's right.
Intention to leave the ACC. Nobody believes that Florida State is going to leave the ACC before the 2029-2030.
Again, I mean, that's a decent guess. I'm not going to say that he's wrong on that. But But there is a decent percentage that in the next year or two, that Florida State and Clemson decide, you know what, 120 million, 140 million, hey, that's not that bad to pay to jump to another conference and make half that back in the first year, or more than a third of that back in the first year, instead of sitting in the ACC and waiting. And even more when it gets to the point that to where it's down to that 75 million, and you know they're all going to leave in 2025. You're just waiting for the inevitable. Again, I said this yesterday. If I was the ACC, I'm going to Florida State Clemson right now, and I'm telling them $100 million. You guys get the hell out of here. Take your rights. Take whatever. Go. Any other teams, any other schools that want to go with them, this is your opportunity. Go now. And then I'm going to the Big 12, and I'm going to that commissioner and saying, hey, we need to come together. This is what we'll do. We'll become the big ACC, take all the rest of the ACC schools, whichever ones leave, we'll pick up a few more here and there. We'll have all the Big 12 schools. We have Stanford and Cal. Then we'll add Washington State and Oregon State, because then you have your West Coast with Arizona and Utah, and you can have 3 different divisions, and you are basically your own league at that point on. Will the ACC do that? No, because they don't have the foresight for it. But if you're this guy here, you're going to argue till you're blue that the ACC is going to be around forever, even though he doesn't know it's already dead.
School year, because why would you? And the other thing that I think is so fascinating,
Tell me,
is that so many people don't look at history as a teacher. Is it something where you can say, yeah, we're leaving the ACC and in 2025 we're joining the SEC? For this next football season, we are joining the SEC, we're leaving the ACC. Has it ever worked like that? No, it hasn't.
Huh? Did I hear that wrong?
Financial hit. And I keep your media right. Financial hit.
Damn it.
School year. Because why would you? And the other thing that I think is so fascinating is that so many people don't look at history as a teacher.
Okay.
Is it something where you can say, yeah, we're leaving the ACC and in 2025 we're joining the SEC?
Yeah.
For this next football season, we are joining the SEC.
I mean, it could be.
Leaving the ACC.
Could be.
Has it ever worked like that? No, it hasn't.
No. I mean, there have been schools in the past that have jumped after a year, or just given a year and gone. There's been a few that have done that. Now, do most of them normally have a 2 or 3 year? Well, Texas and Oklahoma, they announced they were leaving, and it was supposed to be they had to wait another 5 years, but the SEC and Big 12 worked something out to where the SEC paid the Big 12, and within 2 years, wasn't it 2 or 3 years, like Texas and Oklahoma was then in the SEC. I mean, and he's talking about this, but UCLA and USC basically did the same thing. It was only a 2-year period, and they jumped. I mean, it's not uncommon. In fact, if a conference actually wants a team, and the other conference realizes it's just better for that team to leave, most of the time they work out a deal to within a year or two get that school out and in the other conference. Are there some that wait for their conference contracts to end? Yeah, I mean, sure, but it's not anyone jumping to like one of these big leagues. It's like a lateral move, or like Sunbelt to Big 12 or whatever. That might be considered a decent. But I mean, his argument. I mean, I think I understand what he's trying to go for, but at the same time, there are actual instances of this stuff happening.
It's usually a years-long process, and usually when you join a new conference, you take a...
Yeah, it was not a year-long process to have Texas and Oklahoma join the SEC. I think that took a month. and all the schools agreed that they should join. I mean, that happened quick, if we remember right. That went from we're hearing talks of Texas and Oklahoma being interested, and the SEC and SEC being interested, and within like a matter of a week, it was Texas and Oklahoma are leaving the Big 12. Then within a few days, it was the SEC is giving out invites, and then within like a month, it was they've been accepted. So yeah, it does happen quick. It does happen pretty fast.
Significant financial hit. And I think one of the true questions about Florida State's appetite to leave the ACC today, which is, I'm telling you, zero. I've been told straight up they have no plans to leave the ACC or try to leave the ACC.
This whole thing has been about leaving the ACC, my dude. It may not happen in the first month of them getting the win on this thing. It may not. And for all these people like him, they will argue that, see, they're still winning because Florida State hadn't left. The whole point of this was to get more money, was to abolish the grant of rights, was to make sure they had their media rights when they left, and to leave. And that's still all going to happen. It might not happen like what some Florida State fans expected or some Clemson fans expected. It would happen just super fast. The whole point of this was to get paid, was to get rid of the grant of rights, which they basically did, was to make sure their media rights were following them wherever they went, which they basically got, and to drop the buyout, which they got, where they can leave any time. I don't understand why he's standing on this hill and why he's arguing this point, because, the only thing I can think is that he just hates Florida State, which, again, that's fine.
In the next 18 months, because they understand if they were to go to the SEC today, let's say, which
now listen to this.
Most people believe the SEC doesn't have an appetite to add Florida State.
You notice how I keep saying appetite? Somebody has an appetite.
If they were to go to the SEC today, would they get a significant share of the new SEC TV deal? You know the answer is
okay. So here's the thing. Yeah, they're not going to get 100% of the TV deal. That TV deal was already made. It's already been there. But a school like Florida State, a school like Clemson, a school like North Carolina, brand name, a Notre Dame, even though Notre Dame's in with NBC, so we'll keep Notre Dame out of that. UNC, Florida State, Clemson, brand names, helmets that people recognize, helmets that people want to watch. I'll even throw Miami in there, even though Miami's only had one good year in the last 25 years. Those are names that people will want to watch. Those are names that will get investors that want to put money, to get sponsors that want to put money into your conference. So would they get a full share right away? No, but they'd at least get half of that new deal, because it only helps your product better if the members of your product are good and are bringing eyes to it. The SEC and the Big Ten know this. It is business deals now. You're not going to bring a team in and then go, well, hey, you're still not going to make as much as what you made in the ACC, so good luck struggling, but in 5 years, we'll have you at 100 million, and then you can start competing. No. It is about ratings as far as contract deals go, and if they brought any of these teams in, they're at least getting half of that new deal. Believe me, they are. They will, because it is about product, and it's making sure your product looks good on Saturday. That brings more eyes in. It brings more revenue in. To sit there and say that they're not going to get any of the deal, or they're not going to get the full deal. Of course they're not, because it was a TV deal made a year or two ago. They would have to wait until 2030, 2031, which Florida State and Clemson would be fine with. They would still make 30 to 40 million more being in these other two conferences than they would staying in the ACC. And that's what this guy does not get and or understand or refuses to see, because he would have to take the L on it.
Is no. If the exiting members of the Pac-12 who went to the Big Ten in Oregon and Washington, SC and UCLA.
Okay, now before he goes in this, I'll go in this again. Yeah, USC and UCLA did take a pay cut because the TV deal or whatever was already there. But I think it was only like half of what instead of the full. Oregon and Washington State, and he's not going to explain this. Oregon and Washington State took a deeper cut because they begged to get in. Big Ten came for USC and UCLA. They wanted USC and UCLA. They didn't want Oregon and Washington right away. They had to beg and have USC and UCLA go, hey, why don't you bring them in too? And the Big Ten said, fine, but for the first, 5, 6 years, you guys only get like a small percentage of the TV deal. And Oregon and them agreed because they just wanted, they knew that the Pac-12 was dying and they wanted to be in the, but he's not going to say that. He's going to tilt it his way to make it seem like they all got bad deals or they all didn't get the deals that they expected, and Florida State and Clemson are screwed.
How much money do you think those schools are making?
65 to 75 million a year.
$100 million a year that the Big Ten teams are getting, the Big Ten universities are getting, allegedly, per year from their TV deal. Well, we know that the newest members of the Pac-12 and the Big Ten are getting $30 million a year. So they left.
Okay. TV deal. But what this jackass is not talking about is you still get conference money from being in that conference. And it's not just with football, even though football is the biggest revenue. And all the other sports, it's like a giant, I won't say slush fund, but a giant bag of money. And it's all divvied out equally to every team in that conference. So again, guess how much UCLA and USC got in their first year in the Big Ten? $65 to $75 million. Okay? Florida State and Clemson, if they're lucky, they will get 45 at the most million a year staying in the ACC. So your argument, my man, is that it's stupid for Florida State and Clemson to leave because UCLA and USC are only getting $30 million from the TV deal, even though they actually got 65 to 75 million a year. And then you're telling me that's a bad deal. I'm telling you right now, Florida State and Clemson would jump. If it was a $100 million buyout, they'd jump to get 65 to 75 million a year in the Big Ten. And if he can't admit that, if he's only going to talk about a TV deal, the money from that, and not the grand scheme of all the money that they're making, how do you have a sports show, my friend? I mean, I've already debunked a large portion of what he said. He did nothing, no research, no nothing. He just came on here and started talking through his nose about his points that he wanted to get across because he feels he's right. And he is only right on a few things, but constantly wrong on everything.
The Pac-12 and handed the Big Ten a $70 million write-down and said, yeah, we're happy to do it. Do you think that's where Florida State is right now? That they're willing, when they're on the cusp of the payday that they've talked about for years.
Again, it's not the payday they're talking about on the cusp for years. They wanted to be equal or at with the SEC and the Big Ten. They're going to be making maybe 45 million a year. And we had just stated USC and UCLA both made up to 75 million in their first year, and they were bottom tier teams of the Big Ten. That is 30 to 40 million more depending on how much they make in the ACC. It is not on the same level. It is not. In the SEC, you're going to have teams that are going to be making that much, if not more, a year. In the fact that he cannot see and understand that, again, how is he a sports guy talking this nonsense and can't believe?
Want to make more money or be on par with the SEC. And over the next year, if they get the TV ratings and they win games, they'll likely make somewhere between $50 and $60 million.
That, again, that's not true. And it's not about winning games, okay? The way the system is set up with the ACC, it's gone to who are their highest rated ones, who bring more revenue to the ACC as far as views go from the television market, which is Florida State, then Clemson, and I think Miami. They'll get a bigger cut of the pot at the end of the year, and it's not going to be 65. You're looking at maybe 45 million, if that. And you're telling me that Florida State wouldn't go, yeah, I'll just take half of the TV deal right now or a third of the TV deal right now, knowing in 5 years that the TV deal is going to be outrageous. It's going to be in the billions of dollars to where we're going to be making 100 million, 120 million a year in that conference where the ACC will still only be making nickels and dimes. Come on, dude. Be smarter than that. I know there's a brain in that bulb of yours somewhere.
In revenue from the ACC conference. Now, that puts you on par with the SEC until the new SEC deal kicks in. But are you really going to go to the SEC, probably lose 50% of the revenue you just gained access to? Jake, that doesn't make any sense at all.
Yeah, and I think that, the thing that people want to do here is they want to say that the ACC is dying and,
it is. It's been dying, my friend. How do you guys, are you guys secret ACC fans? Are you guys invested money-wise in the ACC? It's dying. It has been dying for 10 years.
It's, it's in 2030, everyone's going to leave and it's going to be.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
Terrible. And, the ACC is this awful conference. And
yeah.
And I just don't think that there's a need to do that. I think.
Don't be mean to the ACC. There's no need to say it's dying. There's no need to say it's an awful conference. But for the last 2 years, we've been shitting on Florida State and saying how they whine too much and how they're babies, and we can't even give them a win right now and actually admit that they got the better part of this deal because we've been shitting on them for the entire year and a half. But don't make fun of the ACC. It's not dead. It's still alive.
I think that the ACC, I would say got to win in this situation. Obviously,
I can't watch this anymore. These guys did not. They just basically looked at tweets and went with the ones that they wanted to read and wanted to understand, and then came on their program and just backed up what they wanted to see. He's not even looking at the camera after saying that nonsense right there. That the ACC won.
Obviously, the conference is going to stay together. Florida State can stop barking and complaining and being a problem in the room. And I think that, the ACC did what it had to do. And
survive. So here's the thing. The whole time this was going on, individuals like these two and everyone else were saying the grant of rights, that deal was ironclad, was never going to be broke. It's just how it is. Sign the contract, stick with it, whatever. Yet here we go. The ACC agreed to settle, and they settled because they don't want information getting out. They would have had to come to Florida and plead their case in Florida, which would have opened the doors to everything. All their documents, all their records, everything would have been on display. Everything. Their deal with ESPN, their deal with Raycom, their deals with the schools, everything would have been on display. It would have been out in the open. And there are reports out there that ESPN did not want this stuff being in the public, did not want it out in public and force the ACC to make this deal. Their arguments here is, are their brains mush? The ACC folded the minute the Florida Supreme Court said the ACC would have to come to Florida and battle this out. It wasn't that they sat there for a month and said, yep, we're ready to go to court, let's do this. They folded immediately, within a 48-hour period, decided to make a deal. How can you say the ACC won when they are the ones that folded? how does anybody watch the show or take these guys? I mean, how do they have 140,000 subscribers when they have no knowledge? Maybe it's just this. Maybe this is the only thing they don't know what they're talking about. Maybe on other things they are, like cannolis and donuts and being a Monday morning quarterback. Maybe they're fantastic at that. But they are taking a huge L when it comes to this. And the fact that they can't admit it themselves and even do just the simple amount of research to find out what they were wrong on and just go, okay, yeah, we were wrong. The ACC is in dire straits. It was a win for Florida State mainly and Clemson. They did what they needed to do.
I don't want to hear from Florida State anymore about how they don't have opportunities to make money.
We didn't. Did you see what the old deal was? Do you understand why it was changed?
Want to hear from Florida State fan about how, oh, well, we lost games and, somehow we got screwed.
Huh? We lost games and somehow we got screwed.
This is a very straightforward proposition. You win games, you're going to make money. You lose.
You win games, you're going to make money.
Games, you're not going to make money. And
you win games, you're going to make money. You lose games, you're not going to make money. I'm not. Why even bring up what I've said 20 times about what the new deal is? Because they're not even listening to themselves.
Frankly, if you lose games, no one's going to feel sorry for you at this point.
We don't give a damn. Every team that loses takes hell, especially from numbnuts like you on social media. I mean, unless someone is addicted to social media and it hurts their feelings, I don't care. We just went 2-10. How worse could it get? We could lose every game this season. That's just how football is. We only won 2 games last year. We'll be okay. It sucked, but we'll deal with it. We knew we sucked last year. There was no argument against that. We were trash. But that doesn't make up for how the ACC has treated us ever since we've joined it. The ACC is garbage. Continue.
That's the reality of this, settlement. And I think that, the other thing you got to consider for make money, you lose games, you're not going to make money.
Okay.
And frankly, if you lose games, no one's going to feel sorry for you at this point. That's the reality of this.
That's the reality of the settlement is if we lose games, no one's going to feel sorry for us. Thank you. Thank you for informing me on that. I'm so glad that if we lose games, people aren't going to care. We went 2-10 last year. But thank you that people are going to give a shit. And that's why this contract went through. That was the point of this contract. Thank you. Sorry. Thank you for that. Appreciate you enlightening me on how people view us if we lose games. Thank you.
Settlement. And I think that, the other thing you got to consider for all the people saying that, everyone's just going to leave the conference in 2030 and, this conference is dead and it's over. By the time 2030 gets here, we're probably not going to have, the Power 4 conferences in college football the way we have them today. The Super League's probably going to come to fruition, and all of this is going to be for naught.
What? Hold on. That confused. So he said that the Power 4 won't come to fruition and that this will all be for naught because when Florida State... I don't understand that argument. Is he saying that there will still be a Power 4 conference and there'll be Power 4 conferences and Florida State will not leave because there's a Power 4 and they'll want to stay? Or is he saying that there won't be and that there will be what people think it's going to be, a Power 2 conference? That confused me.
Of, the Power 4 conferences,
Hold on.
going to make money. And frankly, if you lose games, no one's going to feel sorry for you at this point. Like, that's the reality of this settlement. And I
Thank
think
you for the reality check.
the other thing you got to consider for all the people saying that, everyone's just going to leave the conference in 2030 and, this conference is dead and it's over. By the time 2030 gets here, we're probably not going to have, the Power Four conference.
Okay, so we're not going to have the Power Four conference. Okay.
In college football the way we have them today. The Super League's probably going to come to fruition, and all of this is going to be for naught.
Okay, so the Super League is coming to fruition. You want to know why it's coming to fruition, my friend? I mean, how about I whisper it to you? The Super Conference is coming to fruition because Florida State and Clemson sued the ACC. And the ACC settled, which made it easier for them to leave the conference. They don't have to wait till 2036 now. They can leave in 2025, which will make the Super Conference because they will leave and join it and make it a Super Conference, 2 Super Conferences. Your argument is probably one of the dumbest things I've heard ever. You just proved yourself to be an idiot on your own show. Congratulations.
At the end of the day, because the whole structure is going to change. So
Yeah, it's changing because Florida State and Clemson won their lawsuit, my man. It basically, it was going to, you are correct in that it was going to a super conference, 2 conferences at some point. You are correct. The problem was Florida State and Clemson didn't want to wait until 2036 because the SEC and the Big Ten would pick up other schools, would decide we're not going to wait that long. This is what's going to happen. And Clemson and Florida State didn't want to wait, and that's why they sued. What the hell this guy's talking about?
I have to say is congratulations. You got your win where you're going to make some more money if you win football games or basketball games, or if you just win more and you're going to get more TV distribution.
Right.
But ultimately the reality is that
okay, it's not about that. We're going to find this again because this is just getting ridiculous as far as what the payouts were. On 3 we'll have it. Where is On 3? And I'm pretty sure ESPN, like Adrian Adelson and all them, did the stories about it as far as how it breaks down with the payment process. Where is it? Where is it? Oh man, this is gonna suck. I saw it out here somewhere, but I'm pretty sure that what it is yeah, exit fee expected to drop. Those guys didn't talk about that at all. Okay, the new model or brand incentive is based on a 5-year rolling average of TV ratings through logistics, including how property games average, split distribution, long-standing members, blah, 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 blah. Anywhere here, top earners are expected to net an additional $15 million more, according to sources, while the schools believe annual payout is $70 million annual. So, again, they're maybe getting $45 million a year, and also depending on where it has nothing to do with wins or losses. I don't know what those dummies are talking about. It has to do with their ratings and the generate and how they generate TV ratings and stuff like that. So it goes into eyes on product. The more eyes you have on your product, the more that you are going to get paid. It doesn't matter. Florida State went 2-10 and was still the 3rd highest viewed team out of the ACC behind Clemson and Miami. and they went 2-10. 2-10. And we were still the third most watched ACC product in football. You had other teams that made bowl games and won more games than us. And nobody gave a damn about them. But you had us with only 2 wins. 2 wins. And we still had more people watching us. In fact, we almost had more people watching us than watching Miami. And Miami almost made it to the playoff. SMU made it to the playoff. And more people watched Florida State than they did SMU. This new deal has nothing to do with wins and losses. And again, the fact that these guys could not just go and find these things, do your job to give your viewing audience a chance to understand what's going on. The fact that you guys are just creating shit up on the fly and talking nonsense, and then later in your program defending yourselves saying, "Oh, well, if we're wrong, we'll come on and admit." Please rewatch the first 20 minutes and please come on the next day and admit the whole thing was wrong and you guys are morons and you need to fix it, because it is all wrong. It is completely wrong.
That this is just like any other story. College football fan and ACC fan and Florida State fan want to take a victory lap and, flip the bird to the world and say that they've taken over.
Huh? Why would the ACC fan, the Florida State fan come together and flip off the world and say that they're taking over?
They're in full control. And I just sit here and I say, yeah, did you get what you wanted on paper? Did you get more money? Did you get more control? Did you, get more control of your future? Well, sure. Yeah, you did accomplish that. But I'm going to go back to the point we made yesterday that I know for a fact nobody is talking about, which is you may on paper be having access to making more money, but that doesn't exclude all the money you spent. This money you're about to make if you win these games, you're just digging out of the hole of the league.
Okay, so the estimates right now out of the money that they spent on the lawsuit is maybe 10 to 15, maybe top in the 20 millions. Maybe, if that. It could be even lower than that. That's not digging out of anything. And that'll be something where you can work out payment plans with these lawyers. Most of the time that's how it's done anyways. And the minute they jump to another conference, it won't much matter. So what is the argument with that?
Legal fees at this point that you paid.
You burned a lot of money in fees on this.
Yeah.
And listen, ACC fan, you should be happy. But Florida State fan, I'm talking directly to you.
Okay.
You should be thrilled with this.
We are.
You should be thrilled with this.
Thank you.
You're making more money than Oregon is.
No, we are making more money than Oregon on the TV deal. But let's look at this. You know what? Here, we'll do this right now. How much money did Oregon make in the first year with the Big Ten? Oh, it's not available. Fantastic. But look, they brought in over $150 million in operating revenues. All right, so Oregon's not in there. We'll have to come back to that at some point. But no. TV deal, Florida State made more with our TV deal and the ACC money combined. Yeah, we made more than Oregon as far as Oregon's TV deal goes. But Oregon TV deal plus what they made for being in the Big Ten, probably going to be 20 to 30 million more than what Florida State and Clemson made. So Try again.
You're making more money than Washington and UCLA and USC.
No.
And you're not traveling across the country to do it. You're making more money than those folks. You're on par in the short term.
No, actually, I mean, granted, we didn't play many of the California teams this year. We didn't. Cal came to Tallahassee. We go to Stanford next year. So that, I mean, he kind of wins that we didn't have to pay for going to traveling that much, but we will be playing West Coast teams on the West Coast as long as we're in the ACC, Cal and Stanford. We had to fly to Dallas, which doesn't seem like much, but that is. But we also have to fly all the way up to Syracuse, to Boston College, to Notre Dame whenever we play those games. So there's still significant traveling with being in the ACC. It's about the same as as Oregon or UCLA and USC did. You know, I mean, it'll be about the same. But that's the way college football is headed. That's just where it's headed. It's going to be like a coast to coast thing now.
The very short term with your SEC compatriots. So that's what you've been bitching about, right? Is that not what the heart of the Florida State lawsuit was? We need to financially compete, and we can't do this because this grant of rights sucks.
Yeah.
It does.
Right? That's what the whole argument was about. And now the truth about the settlement,
Tell us.
it puts you on par with SEC schools revenue.
It puts us on par. It puts us on, dude. UCLA and USC made up $75 million their first year in the Big Ten. SEC teams are making almost $80 million. Florida State and Clemson are just now with this new deal maybe making $45 million a year. How is that on par, my man? I'm going to let him talk a little more, and then I'm ending this because this is just ludicrous.
It gives you an opportunity to control your destiny.
Yeah, the lawsuit did because we can leave whenever the hell we want. You are right about that.
After the 2030 season, when it'll probably be between $80 and $90 million by most accounts for you to leave the league. But what's the truth? It's probably not going to matter at that point because we're going to have a
Super League.
So it's probably not.
Okay, again, and why are we going to have a Super League, you two numbskulls? Because Florida State and Clemson sued and got basically an early release for 2029 to do that right before the Big Ten and the SEC renegotiate their contracts for television. This would not be happening if Florida State and Clemson did not sue or did not get their way or lost in court. There would not be a Super League with them involved if that was the case. There wouldn't be a Super League in general because these conferences are waiting for the ACC to fall apart to add those brands to their conferences. It irritates me to the point that my brain wants to explode out of my head that these two numbskulls are just talking in circles and smelling their own ass. This is some of the dumbest arguments I've seen in a while. They have no knowledge or understanding of this. They're just basically hate talking because they can't stand Florida State, and they got proved to be idiots because for a year or two, they did nothing but shit on Florida State and a little bit of Clemson and whatever. But anyways, if you want to go find them and tell them that they're idiots, the Monty Show, go and do it. Don't be like, I wouldn't be super mean. I mean, I don't have enough people watching this to even do that anyways. But if you do, just let them, just tell them actual facts instead of nonsense. Besides that, yeah, don't bring too much drama. Just let them know that they don't know what the hell they're talking about. But with that, we'll call it there. Yeah, man. Besides that, hey, find you guys some good earth and dig it, all right? Some real good earth and just dig it. All right. Till next time.